happening. You're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Conlin, and with me, as always, is my favorite former homicide prosecutor, Jarrett Ferrantino. Hey, Jarrett.
You know a lot of former homicide prosecutors?
I mean, a couple. I know a couple.
Everybody on TV was like a former prosecutor. I feel like I'm in this like class of a million people. But
no,
anyway,
no.
Good morning. Good morning.
Listen, you are my favorite. Okay, so just
good. Well, I'm honored.
Accept the compliment. So, okay, wait. Now Dizzy says, Jarrett, are you in a tin can? I didn't think it sounded bad. Does it sound bad? I don't think he does.
I need to move. I'm in my home office, so like I don't know if. Let's see. I just feel like.
I mean, I don't know. I can hear you fine, but
I may be in a tin can. But anyway, it's like. So as I told you, we were talking a little bit before we started.
I feel like this is worse though because your light is shining. You've got like an outside light. Yeah,
hold on. Back. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get out of this room. So
okay, that works.
Hold on.
Okay, no problem. So wait, Dizzy and Afton, are you guys? I've been going back and forth. There's the blood spatter expert on the stand for Karen Read, dude. Like, I don't know if it's me or because I'm covering a bunch of different things this week, but I'm getting a little annoyed at yesterday court for Karen Read ended at 11:48. I was like, this is crazy. I guess mishap with the witnesses. Fine. But I was planning on, we were going to show some of the voir dire for ARCA, and then that's not happening. And then I saw that it was, hey, MJ. And then it was like the jury is going to go to 34 Fairview, but then there's the blood expert. So, okay. So there's not. So who are they interviewing on the stand this morning? Let me see. I thought it was a blood expert from what I read last night on Christina Rex's tweets. Because like I said, I literally did it last night before oh no, now they're on break. Okay. Okay. No, Guarino, did he continue this morning, Guarino, or, okay, now they're at the, okay, good. All right. That works. I mean, we can, gosh. Yeah, they're on the field trip now. Okay, that's what I thought. So they're going to 34 Fairview. And just, for everybody that paid attention to trial 1, when I went to Dedham last year and I went to the courthouse, I did drive myself over to Canton to 34 Fairview to be able to see the crime scene. I learned very early on that in order to really properly comment on something, and Jarrett, I know you'll agree with me, you really got to go to the scene.
It's
where
huge.
Things happen. It's huge, right? Huge. And this was like, hey, Sheila. And this was what, I think Cheryl McCullum taught me this, crime scene 101. And my assessment of 34 Fairview was that it is a lot smaller than the pictures make it look. So that for me was kind of big when I thought about the homeowners not coming out. I was like, well, wait a minute. This lawn is not as big as it looks in pictures. The house is here. The bedroom's here. They're allegedly here. Sketchy. So,
just a perfect example. I'm involved in a piece of litigation that involves about 1,000 acres in a local property here. Yesterday, I went out to walk it. But basically, the claim is there's an encroachment. I have maps that go back to the 1800s. None of it recreated what it felt like when I was there. I literally laid eyes on it. I'm like, oh, I get it. This changes my whole dynamic. And I spent part of the day trying to imagine what this looks like. I look it up on Google Earth. It's still not the same. Going there, you smell the area, you feel it. You almost feel the pheromones from when John O'Keefe died on those grounds too. I think it's just important you get there to see it. And it doesn't happen enough in trials. I've asked for it and have been denied the right to go to a property. So it's good they're going there for a lot of different reasons.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And I would like to talk about this week so far because I mean, I feel like I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say, Jarrett, but just going backwards a bit, and I was in and out of some of the chats yesterday. I was kind of going on with Defense Diaries and Josh Schiff, and it was good. I always love their commentary, but for me, I understood why the CW wanted a third party to read some of the text messages between Karen and John instead of Trooper Guarino. Excuse me, I cannot say his stupid name. I mean, they were just boring again. It was just awkward, boring texts of a couple having a fight. Didn't seem like anything crazy. You know, couples have fights. Karen was annoying John for a little bit. But you know, at the beginning of these text messages, she really was writing things that were caring. She cared about the kids, and it was just like, okay. And then also sitting there and seeing Trooper Guarino as this expert, knowing that he overlooked over 30,000 text messages between Sandra Birchmore and Matthew Farwell, and he's still considered an expert, kind of made me upset. And the defense is not allowed to use that at all, which, I mean, Jarrett, what do you think about that? I feel like I get it. It's a totally different case, but it's
so what is it? You're talking about Guarino?
Yeah, and I guess
what's his zone of expertise in like what is it specifically?
He's the cell phone. He is the cell phone expert here.
Okay, so you're saying he missed 30,000 texts, or he overlooked them? Like, okay, so here, let me say this about the Karen Reed texts. There's a couple of things I highlighted from this, and it's going to be incumbent on Brennan in his closing argument. This case is much more, at least in the first couple of days, about Karen Reed. Okay, that's huge for the prosecution. That's what they need to do if they want to successfully prosecute this case. And here are the things like that fit Brennan's narrative. Karen said she's in a personal crisis. John asked her to stop calling. Life is difficult, she said, and you've really hurt me this time. So you have this cascade of all these problems that Karen is having. Now, these are her own words. Her words that she felt so strongly about, she wrote in a text. Now, I know people say nasty things in text. I get it. However, most people don't end up on trial for running over their loved one hours after you write you're in a personal crisis and you're at the end of your rope with this person. So a lot of this, it's really going to be incumbent on Brennan to dramatize those texts.
They didn't, though. They didn't. And he wanted to.
He has to. He has to an argument. Yes. Okay. I get that. Okay. I get that through Guarino, they came in antiseptically, but it's on. I mean, if I'm prosecuting this case, I get up in closing argument and I dramatically go, the good news is they're in. And when closing comes in, part of the jury is going to have forgotten the sledgehammer impact they may have had. And I just be reading them saying, does this sound like someone who's losing control? Does this sound like someone who would throw a car in reverse and hit John? You know, that's what I would be doing.
And again, it's going to be up to the jury, you know, especially the females or sure the males, but like, yes, Dizzy, her texts were annoying. You know, she couldn't sort of give it up. She wanted this closure, this answer. But again, to me, I'm like, this proves nothing. She's just annoying him. And she's a lot. She seems like a lot. But I know many women who do this and who just don't want, you know, to not have the last word here, I guess. But I thought that it's just cringy. It's like, do we have to do this? Do we have to do this again? It doesn't prove murder to me. It just whatever. And going back,
Lauren, it shows that here's what it shows. Karen Reed is not accused of running John O'Keefe over on a good day or when their relationship is going great. So all of those things, I get it. People speak that way. They'll fight that way. Sure. But that night ends in murder. So you have to say it's so important to the narrative. Without those texts, you don't get the murder. And again, murder's a reach. Okay. But it's so important to show you that this is ours. She's not calming down. And then the only time they appear lovey-dovey in their words are when they're gassed up with with booze, and they're throwing fuel on the fire, which we all know when you're feeling that way, the last thing you need is more alcohol and doubling the drinks and then continuing to fight. That's the last thing these folks needed.
And you make perfect sense. So yes, I understand why all the texts come in. I do. Are you kidding? I totally do. I think deja vu, round 2 again, where I'm like, last time around, these didn't sway me any particular way. I was just, and this is me just as a trial follower, reporter, whatever. I'm not a juror. But yeah, so I think yesterday I was like, cool, been there, done that. And I'm looking at Trooper Guarino, who, again, really, in my opinion, effed up the Birchmore and Farwell texts. And it's like, you wonder then why the people of Massachusetts are so quick to say, oh yeah, well, maybe this was a cover up or corruption. And I'm not saying it was, I'm not saying anything about a conspiracy. I'm just saying when you see troopers like that who overlook all of these text messages between a minor, once a minor, and that, it's like, okay, I kind of see where these people are not super trusting, if that makes sense, or why they're not trusting.
Here's the thing. They say what they say. So you could have anybody reading those texts in the manner in which Guarino's reading them. What's not in dispute is what's in, I was going to say black and white, but they're in green and blue. What's in green and blue here? Like, they say what they say. They're not really subject to interpretation. It's clear. One thing about Karen Reed, she doesn't mince words. She's no slouch. Karen she's an advocate for herself. She's going to sustain what she's feeling. And it played out in every interview I've ever seen her do. It plays out in her emotion in the courtroom.
Right.
And it clearly played out with her fighting with John, where John strikes me based on the little bit I've seen about him as somebody who's more passive, doesn't want to fight, is tired, is trying to raise these kids. Doesn't necessarily make him a better person than Karen, but that's their styles.
I think you nailed that too. And how many men do we know out there that are just like, not tonight. Well, just give it up. I'm not in the mood for this. The woman is like, well, I am. Like, bro, bring it on. And then
she seems like she's always in the mood for that kind of fight. Every time she's interviewed, there's like this bend to what she's saying. It's like, by the way, I'll scratch your eyes out if you disagree with me. It's like,
no. Okay. So wait, so then let's get to what I want to get to here is the clips that Brennan is playing in court, Karen's media clips. And I have gone through this. How do I say it? I've gone through from when, let's say, the ID doc was first released. I've gone through some thoughts about that, the Dateline clips, all of these different things. I've gone through it. Okay. And I've weighed in about what some experts have said about it, including you, where, you've said, I don't think that makes me think of her any less guilty or any more guilty. It is what it is. Now, one thing I'll say is when Brennan gave his opening statement, he was very deliberate in saying, this is what Karen Reed did. John was out of the car. Okay. He's on the side of the car after this awful argument. Karen deliberately pulls up, and hold on, I have this written down because he had, and by the way, his measurements were different this time around. I looked at them. So he says she drove 35 feet forward. Then she put her Lexus in neutral. Then she put it in reverse, on purpose, pushed up to 75% acceleration, going back 70 feet. And then he used her words from a media clip, clipping Officer John O'Keefe. And then he said, Reed's statements will confirm the science and the data. That's what he said. I've had some time to think about this.
Okay.
That her statements do not prove to me that she deliberately was angry the way he painted her after this fight, so angry that she was like, and I'm doing all this. Sorry, but you know what
Right.
I'm saying? She's sitting there, and yes, should she stop talking? Yes, shut up already. But she's like, well, I mean, could I have driven away and done this? Maybe. Well, I don't think so, but that's what I thought of. Did I have too much to drink? Yeah. Were the drinks weak? Yeah. Was the air blasting? Yeah. But never once was she like, I was so angry. So yeah, did I pull up and did I stop and did I seethe for a minute? No, to me, that's just her being like, I guess I was kind of annoyed, but I wasn't really. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's not.
Here's what I hear. So Brennan can't say those things unless it's backed by another expert that he's going to produce. Okay, so
but
he
said
can't just.
This. He did say this.
No.
Yeah.
He can't say them unless he's going to. I know he said them, but chances are he's pulling that from a report. He can't just say that in a vacuum.
Right.
And if he did, he's going to lose credibility. I'm 100% expecting somebody to corroborate that. Okay. Here's the problem. Here's where you run. The more detail they provide, here's where you run into the frame up problem with the Alberts and everybody else. It just so happens. Okay. So not only did but the allegation is the Alberts framed Karen Reed, right? And they cracked the tail, Proctor cracked the taillight, etc. Okay. And the firefighter's lying. Everybody's lying. It also so happens, here's what fits their frame up. They were fighting all day. She reversed that night in the direction of O'Keefe in that particular, with that taillight. Okay. So like, do you think the Alberts are looking out the window to say, make sure whatever Karen does coincides and comports with the frame up, ultimately that if we kill John, we're just going to dump his body outside? The problem is, here's what the jury's going to say. It doesn't make sense that Karen, who's angry, whose car shows she backed up into the, potentially into John, leaving him to die at that angle of the yard, then supports a frame up. It doesn't. That's the problem.
No, but I don't take it like that. And I guess people in the chat, maybe you can also provide some context as well. I don't personally take it like that because I don't think at the time, I think that in Karen's mind, she was angry. Yeah, because he didn't answer. She drove away. And, we have a timeline. We have a timeline of certain witnesses that saw her sitting outside by herself in the car. I mean, she wasn't talking to anyone that we know. She wasn't screaming at anyone on the phone. They didn't see a body laying there. I mean, so we've got all this stuff going on here. And I don't think any of this is necessarily part of this conspiracy yet, because I think no matter what, I don't think anybody wanted John O'Keefe to die that night. I don't think there was this like plot to get him in the house. I just don't think there.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I just think the convenience of how it played out, whether or not the jury buys it or the prosecution fails to prove it. See, I'm just reading what Afton said.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I agree. That's the question. That's my next point, Afton, is the question that's going to be asked is, did it happen and has it been proven in the front of the house? I don't know with all of those factors, whether or not you even get or need that frame up stuff. I know it helps. It gets to the chipping away at reasonable doubt. I just think.
Well, because you heard what there is so much doubt that you're like, he said it's littered. I think that's what was his words, or maybe I'm thinking of Harvey. It's littered with reasonable doubt. So why wouldn't he just kind of throw in all of it when someone's life is on the line, right? Karen's life is on the line.
Because then it becomes a question of, was it the Alberts in the frame up or did Karen hit him? More so than was there a failure on the part of the Commonwealth to prove beyond a reasonable doubt he was hit? Like, it just changes the focus. I mean, now you're kind of creating a burden for yourself to prove that the Alberts did it, this third person defense.
But they don't have to. That's not their job, right?
I know they don't. But with that third party defense, that's what you're doing. You're almost burden shifting where you should just be chipping away at. It's a strategy decision.
Well, I think that they've done a much better job this time around because they went hard on Proctor in the opening statements. Like, yes, they obviously sprinkled in the reasonable doubt because, again, they have to. Their client's life is on the line. But I thought overall, instead of saying, the first line I think Alan Jackson said was, John O'Keefe was not involved in a collision. It wasn't John O'Keefe was beat up inside. It wasn't anything like that, because that's when you're like, wait a minute, this is wild to
That's
me.
kind of my point. You can get the whiff of that by putting on the marks on his arm and saying, what is this? Could these be dog? All that stuff without going hard into the paint. Jackson's doing it. First of all, the lawyering, I thought Jackson did a phenomenal job. I thought Yannetti did a great job in trial 1. I've enjoyed watching what's come out. These guys are tough. They do a great job. This isn't me defense lawyer hating at all. No, but I also think Hank Brennan is much more up to the task than Lally was in the first one.
You think? It's moving it's moving along so nicely now. I'm like, look at this pace. This is great, except for his witness debacle yesterday. But
right. But that happens.
Yeah. What did Afton says, Jarrett, what did you think of Brennan not mentioning Proctor? I'm assuming, in his opening statement. What do you think about
here's why.
Not getting ahead of it.
Afton, he doesn't know where Jackson's going in his opening. So he's thinking to himself, I'll address the Proctor situation when I absolutely have to at the time, either when we call him or I could address it in closing later. But he does not know. You have no idea where the defense is going to go in the beginning. Brennan did a really good job of focusing them on saying this is a simpler case than meets the. If he goes into the personnel issues with Proctor, he's complicating the case on himself. Okay, and I understand you could fall on the sword, but his goal and his entire strategy is stay laser focused on Karen Reed.
Right.
But that's a great question. I mean, I'm sure he considered it.
Yeah, his opening statement, I mean, he mentioned 70 less names. I actually felt like he was a good storyteller. He told the story from start to finish. I was always thinking that Lally felt like he had to defend the third-party witnesses, and he just completely lost the case and proving his case, because he was so focused on defending the Alberts and the McCabe's and the Proctors.
He was spinning. He was absolutely spinning in his opening. I always look at an opening statement like the movie trailer. Okay.
Yeah.
You do the trailer, you get like a dramatic statement to capture your audience, and then you lay out one thing you can control in that courtroom: the order of your witnesses as best you can. And you know, for the most part, what they're going to say. So you would say, I'm going to call the following people, and you don't have to name them. You could even just give them a flavor. The police investigators that did this thing, the witnesses that knew and loved John. As you build that outline, as you present it, and as it's confirmed, you're building your own credibility and the credibility for your side. Because a juror is saying, hey, Brennan laid out this roadmap. I'm lost here. I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. But Brennan took me through his roadmap, and he's delivering on what he promised. That builds credibility, and that keeps people on your path.
Yes, I do think, again, so far, I think his witnesses have had a tough time with credibility. And this is my opinion so far, at least firefighter Nuttall. That was, and you feel bad. This guy's a first responder. His job is to save lives, right? It's like he gets on the stand and it's like it's not easy, but this cross, they really hammered the fact that he doesn't have a good memory. So, the fact that he said that John was wearing that puffy coat and then he got annihilated for that because John wasn't wearing a coat at all. And then that kind of went back to Jackson saying, so wait, you just said your memory was so good, it got better with time, because, the first time around, you just said she hit him twice. Now it's 3 times unequivocally. He nailed him. I think that poor guy went to his car and cried for 4 hours after that. And then,
well, he probably did.
But
you know how you fix that? If you fix that by saying, not all. Are you sure you heard that woman say, I hit him? I hit him. Not 4 times, not 6 times, not when you were providing life-saving measures to John. As you sit here today, are you certain you heard Karen Reed say, I hit him? And his answer is yes. And then you're like, whether it was 10, whether it was 5.
Hank didn't do that, though. And because, again, Hank's not like a seasoned prosecutor, right? He's a seasoned cross-examiner. So it's just, it's interesting. But no, and then you get to Carrie Roberts. And I actually watched a video, Brother Counsel did a rundown, and I like to hear his thoughts as well. And Brother Counsel's opinion on the Carrie Roberts thing kind of being caught in this essentially a lie, or as she calls it, she was confused. He said it's not great, obviously, but he didn't think it was like this big win for the defense.
Not earth-shattering.
But I thought it was, again, like the second witness that he tripped up with their memory. So I again, like, it might not, you're right, maybe not earth-shattering, but the fact that she said, I didn't actually hear Karen say this, I was just told that, so I went along with it. I think a lot of us have done that before. However, we just don't do it under oath, if that makes sense. We try to.
Well, and you don't have a recording of what you previously said, right, to look at and say, or reports that document what you said, handwritten statements. And so that's why a second trial, as we said, is always so tough, because there was a full dress rehearsal. And somebody asked, what do you miss about Lally? The thing about a guy like Lally is, let me tell you, and I know a lot of prosecutors like Lally, and I've worked with a lot of prosecutors like him. They're great second chairs. They're great people to have in the courtroom with you. Okay. They're the kind of people that will keep you legally compliant, because, I had stepped into some like dog shit in a lot of cases with running my mouth or fighting or something, when I would have somebody like Lally pull me back and say, hey, Jarrett, you can't say that. You're like, okay, sorry, because there are great lawyers who are eggheads, they're just academic. They know the law, where you have people like Brennan, and I'll even say Jackson and Yannetti, who are built for litigation. They love drama. Jackson comes across as angry. He's not really angry. A man can't be that angry for that long. Karen Reed could be that angry for that long. But here's my point. Jackson is angry because in his world, his client is being framed for a crime she didn't commit. And he just feigns that through and through. He needs somebody like a Lally or a Yannetti sitting next to him to keep him compliant too. So I think you miss a prosecutor like Lally in that respect, but he was outgunned and outmanned in trial one.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yes, 100%. And I also had said at first I was surprised that, I shouldn't say surprised. We knew that Alan Jackson was going to make this great opening statement. I just thought they were going to have Yannetti do it, because Jackson can come across as this slick LA, and Massachusetts, I'm from New Hampshire. I know that I'd be like, who the hell does this guy think he is, right? Like, I like Yannetti's the guy that you want to barbecue with, have a beer with, whatever. But I think, he got his point across. And I don't remember. Do you guys in the chat remember if anybody was tweeting anything about the jury's face? Because I remember during Harvey opening statements, which we'll get to, I was looking at the jury for a lot of this to see what they were buying or what they possibly weren't buying. But, I thought Jackson did a solid job on that. And let me pull this up. Jack says, Jarrett, how common is it that the defendant goes up to sidebars? KR gives me supply teacher vibes when she does it. That's interesting.
What's supply teacher vibes? What is supply teacher?
Like supply teacher? Like, I mean, is that like I don't know.
Well, Jack, so explain. It's not real common. It's not real common. I don't know. I don't know why she's doing that. She certainly has a right to be part of those conversations. But it also looks like she doesn't trust her lawyers to handle some of that too.
Stand-in teacher in the UK.
Oh, substitute teacher. Okay. So does it get, to me, when she does that, it's like, trust your lawyers. They'll take care of it. If there's an issue that needs to be addressed at sidebar, it's often, what happens at sidebar sometimes too, like there's moments of levity. They'll you could like eyeball the lawyer and things that maybe don't have to be done in the presence of your client. So she certainly has a right to, hey, her life's on the line. If she wants to be at a front row seat at every conversation, so be it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So something else I wanted to discuss and point out besides sort of like, and this goes back to the clips, playing the clips, because I do feel like the clips are a huge part of this trial, right? And brand new, because we didn't have these clips for trial 1.
Right.
Even though she did give some interviews before that, I believe, but Lally just
and
chose
during.
he just chose not to use these clips. But just closing the door on that, do you guys understand what I meant when I said, like, I never thought what she said was great in these docs. I thought she should just stop talking. But now hearing what the Commonwealth alleges that she did deliberately and with malice, basically, pulling ahead, going back and running him over, I don't necessarily know that her words match that. That's all I'm saying. And feel free to weigh in. But yes, her words, they don't look good. I mean, whatever. But the other thing was when Peggy O'Keefe took the stand, which was heartbreaking. And I was so thankful that they did not cross-examine her. Oh my gosh, they would have been the devils of the world here, I feel like, if they did. But I knew what they were kind of getting at, because there is a clip of Karen, and I believe they did play part of that, where she says in the ID doc, I think it was, Peggy leans over the kitchen island after somebody says he looks like he got beat up, and she says, it looks like he got hit by a car, and she looks directly at Karen, and Karen felt like, okay, I feel like I'm getting blamed for this, or I feel weird about this, so she leaves. And Brennan made sure to ask her all of these things, like, do you even have a kitchen island? Did you say this? Did you talk to Miss Reed or whatever? But Peggy O'Keefe, she would say no, but she would say, I don't remember. I don't know if you caught that. She would be like, no, I don't remember. I was dealing with Jay. It was just a lot.
If he was asking her those questions, it's because she was better on those questions before and appeared to have been upset, obviously emotional and nervous on the stand, because he wouldn't ask those questions if they hadn't had that discussion before. So that,
you're
to
saying
me,
with Peg O'Keefe?
Yeah. Like you were saying, when Brennan was asking about the statements, how Karen said she was saying, like, was there a kitchen island or things of that nature?
Yeah.
He would not ask that question if he didn't talk to Peggy O'Keefe about it before. Why would you ask that? I mean, you're just, because what's the benefit of that question? If the answer is yes, it's like, great,
Well, yeah, but, and yeah, I guess, again, he's clearly, and look, when he played that clip, I think the jury had no context, right? They're just like, what are we hearing? And he's going to put all of that together at a certain point and say, look, Karen says that she was all weird at the house because Peg O'Keefe was giving her the eyes, or said, I think he was hit by a car. And then Hank's going to be like, she doesn't remember that. She has no recollection of that.
None of it makes Karen look like a victim of a frame up. Like, I think she was hit by a car. If your boyfriend's mother says it looks like she was hit by a car, how do you conclude that she's looking at me and I'm the car that hit her? Like, and I know there was some speculation leading into that exchange, but the reality is her answer shouldn't be, I feel like I'm being set up here. It's like, it's not a natural reaction to someone who's innocent. And I'm not saying
that wasn't her reaction at the moment. She just said she felt weird. Like, she said,
I thought she felt like they're blaming me. I thought that's what she said.
Well, I think she did feel like that, and that also stems from the entire, like, let's go back to that morning, right? When it's crazy, and when she was blaming herself, saying, well, wait, could I don't know what the hell happened. She's still trying to figure it out. So in the corner of her mind, I do believe that she thought that she possibly had some culpability, but she wasn't sure. But then all of a sudden, when everybody's looking at you,
right,
according to her, that's sure. Maybe when she kind of started to feel weird, but I don't know. It sounds like she started that by saying, could I have done something? Did a plow hit him? What happened?
Right. Do you know who feels weird in that context? Somebody who actually ran him over or hit him. But anyway, at least that'd be my argument. I don't know what happened. I'm not taking a side, but none of her comments, as I said, it doesn't move the needle, but none of them are great for her. None of them help her. It's just, if your boyfriend who you love is killed and you're not responsible. I get she's angry. I get everybody's blaming her. It's just not the actions of someone who is a victim here. It's just not.
Well,
it's not consistent with that.
This is also a great question. I'm typing to Sheila and Dizzy. This was interesting. Why was John's mom, she questioned, like, why was Karen at the hospital when Karen said, Peg, is he dead? Is he dead? I guess I was thinking to myself, I'm glad you guys said this out loud. I was thinking, well, maybe John told his mom that he and Karen weren't doing so well, and he was complaining to his mom. I don't know if they had that type of relationship. But like, even so, even if I'm complaining to my mom about my husband, or I guess it might be different, they're dating, but obviously I would be at the hospital, right? If he was hurt and his mom.
It just shows how things were a tad askew in that relationship.
Wait, so MJ, is this the fact he told his mom they were done? Because I didn't see this. Did this come out in court and I may have missed it? I'm just curious because, that would make sense if he's like, Mom, Karen and I are finished. But also, wouldn't that be super fresh? Like if they're finished and
or they were together that night. Jerry Seinfeld says a breakup in a relationship is like knocking over a soda machine. You got to rock it back and forth. Perhaps. Oh, okay. So they may have said they're on the rocks, but they were out together that night.
Okay, and that's what I mean. So that was kind of, Sheila, I'm glad you brought that up. I was a little confused by that. And so it sounds like, and I'm glad that Jackson and Eddie did not cross her, but there were a couple things they could have asked her about, like that, or like the tone about when Karen and her brother and dad went upstairs. She kind of said, I wish I wouldn't have let them up. I don't know what they were getting. I don't know what she was alluding to besides Karen's clothes. Was she alluding to something else that she could have been getting in the master bedroom? I don't know. Weird stuff that you could have dug into a little more, but it wouldn't have been appropriate.
And again, you don't know the answers to those questions. So don't ask what you don't know the answer to, or it'll blow up in your face.
Right. And now, I am nervous for the defense in terms of ARCA because, and look, regardless of what you think, doesn't it seem a little convenient that their best freaking witness now has to go through this voir dire because of alleged discovery issues where, they claim text messages are missing over the last 2 years, but the defense is like, we kept all the emails. We did not realize we were supposed to keep all these texts. And now ARCA allegedly is supposed to dig through and find their texts and turn everything over. And it seems like, I don't want to say questionable, but it's just a coincidence to me that it's like,
well, the other thing though, Lauren, it could be a protective measure of Cannoni saying, I want to go through this process to protect the record. If Karen Reed is convicted and she fails to do this, they're going to say your failure to have that voir dire. So the prosecution gets one shot at this unless there's a mistrial again, right? Yeah. So they need to ensure that it happens. Cannoni's protecting the record even by saying, in an abundance of caution, we've engaged in this voir dire process to clear up any ambiguity on discovery violations because so much of a stink has been raised on this issue. That's really what she's doing. So I don't know. I think they're going to get through the woods on it, though.
I mean, yes, it was Hank, but she's the one that raised most of it. If you recall that she was shaking when she was had motion back this summer and her grave concerns. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And, I will say the defense does a great job, Robert Alessi, of getting up there and over-explaining, if you will, because he does over-explain. I'm kind of like,
yes, he does.
This guy can talk. I kind of feel Cannoni.
He's sharp, though. He's a smart guy. I watched that whole issue, and I think that's what the judge is doing. I think she's just being cautious with that because it was quite a claim initially, and then I thought Alessi did a great job of rebutting it. but I think she wants to go through that process just as a filter before they get on the stand. And it's their right to do it.
I mean, sorry, imagine Alessi is like your husband and you get in a fight. He wants to prove his point. I'd be like, you win, just
guy,
shut up.
Yeah, he runs on batteries, that guy.
I know, right? I feel like whatever you want, just please stop talking. You've hit your word quota for today. Thank you so much.
Right.
No, that's literally what I tell my husband. He has a word quota. Talk so much. And coming from me, who talks more, that says a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's gonna get even more interesting next week. Like I said, I'm anxious for the voir dire. I want that to just be done. So we can hear from these experts that I felt like really were the ones last time around that really sealed the deal for me.
It will be a nothing burger, just like the claims and the fights were. I'm telling you.
You think?
My prediction.
Yeah. Look, if they are not allowed in, I am going to be, I mean, this will be huge. I feel like everybody in the chat, that'll be huge. If they are not allowed in for whatever reason because of these discovery issues, I mean, that's not okay. That's her best.
Best
expert.
That's the suppression of those witnesses is the equivalent of capital punishment on any discovery violation. It really is. It's the extreme, a suppression for a witness that evolved organically from a collateral investigation,
Yep.
And that's the thing. I've been involved in cases where there were collateral investigations. It is such hot ethical soup. You can't believe. It's like you are on a tightrope to begin with. Now you got like spikes at the bottom of the floor. Like, it's difficult, and you don't know what, and it was federal stuff, so you don't know what to turn over. There's grand juries going on. You don't want to break grand jury secrecy. It's awful. It's awful. So I think the defense can claim certain things and certain mistakes that should not necessarily result in a change in the report or the testimony, which is huge, and the suppression of that evidence on behalf of Karen. So I think ultimately it's going to be a nothing burger.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll wait and see for Monday. There will be the voir dire Monday morning. And Dizzy had pointed out that as of right now, the jurors are at 34 Fairview viewing. And like I said, I think they're going to be very surprised, but they also haven't heard too much about the homeowners not coming out, the investigation yet. So I think that will have to be, in the back of their mind. But Jarrett, anything else you want to add before we just move on quickly to Harvey?
No, we'll be happy to talk about Harvey. Monitor pretrial motions in Koberger too. So some of the stuff happening there.
Okay. Well, let's get to this first. I will be back in court on Tuesday for Harvey. I spoke to the defense, and that is when they believe that the complaining witnesses will go on the stand. So I don't know if it's going to be all three next week or just one or two, but oh my goodness, I was surprised, very, very surprised at what I heard in court the other day. Oh, Marnie, thank you so much. This is so nice of you. The True Crime Garage. Yeah, I went on about Kansas moms. They're really nice guys. But yeah, so sitting down in court, I was on the defense side. So I did get some, I don't know, like the defense side got a lot of dirty looks because this is a really tough case. And when I walked in the courtroom, at first, Gloria Allred was in the back and she was by herself. And then she actually, some extra civil Weinstein accusers walked in to meet with her. And at one point, if you guys are paying attention to my tweets, and again, I'll go through some of them, so because I'm sure you didn't see all of them, I was literally live tweeting every part of the opening statement. I really didn't miss anything because it was just so crazy and graphic and weird and just, I didn't want to miss anything. But at one point, the defense said that when these women decided to come forward, Mimi Haley, Jessica Mann, and a new woman that we just heard her name on Monday, Kaya Sokla, he says, and it was very powerful, he said, these women, when they decided to come forward about their alleged assaults and rapes, they didn't go to law enforcement. They didn't go to the hospital. He goes, They went to that woman back there. And he's like, wave to Gloria Allred. Everybody turned around and looked at her. And she kind of like smiled. And he's like, hi, Gloria. He's like, she's a money lawyer. That's what we call a money lawyer. And then he said, Kaya Sokla, Jessica Mann, maybe like he went into how much money they were awarded. And I think it was Kaya Sokla that's upwards of
$3 million.
$3 million. Yeah. And you could see, okay, the jury, even the women, they were just like, what the fuck? Like
it's very,
shocking.
I've had cases like that. So here's the thing. First of all, if what they're alleging is true, they deserve every dollar of it and more. Okay. When you make it about money in a criminal courtroom, because here's why that's fair game. And a lot of you may be wondering, why could they bring that up? Because a witness's motivation and bias is very important. So the argument that Arthur's making is, number one, I thought the best line from his opening was the casting couch is not a crime scene, because that statement, and not to say that that's what happened here, that statement is so powerful because it creates this image of there's a give and take here. You know, this powerful movie mogul in exchange for a new friend with benefits is going to advance your career. Same kind of thing with Bill Cosby, who, by the way, I was at that trial. Gloria Allred was there with all her civil plaintiffs as well, interestingly enough, but in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. But here's my thought. I understand that there are two lanes, civil and criminal. When you say people are motivated by money, okay, and not a desire for justice and putting Harvey Weinstein away, and they went instead of police to Gloria Allred, it really, really goes to that motivation and bias. I'm not saying they're not telling the truth. I'm saying it's a major thought-provoking situation in those courtrooms. It just is.
It got me, because I was like, wait, what? I did not know they are awarded so much money, which fine. I'm not saying that, you know what, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, but it was shocking.
I don't even know that they were awarded that money. It was settled, a lot of these cases, right?
It was settled. Yes.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I would use that. Again, it's litigation jujitsu. It's like, I get up and be like, oh, they were given that money for no reason because they're lying, right? I mean, it's like, you don't just write checks for $3 million to this one, $3 million to that one. That's what the counter to that is. And the other thing is you say, well, people write checks to resolve cases because they have nuisance value. The bottom line is, I would say this. I would say, in response to Arthur's, and I don't like to argue with Arthur, I respect Arthur, but I would say this. Number one, he promised to make their careers. He broke their careers. Here were people that had these bright futures that were destroyed. You know, but that's the claim of the prosecution is I'm going to advance your career, this and that. I would say Weinstein lured these women in, assaulted them, and promised to build their careers up. Their careers were destroyed by him. They're entitled to compensation. They're also entitled to justice. That's the way you do it. The way you do it.
Let me back up a little bit. I think people's careers, like maybe Annabella Sciorra, Mira Sorvino, could argue that. Okay. And this is not New York. This is, I'm talking, I'm their careers suffered because of Harvey. And that is a fact. And it's different. They had careers before this. These three women, the prosecution painted them out to be starving artists, okay? They were not starving artists. They were fine, okay? Let's say, just for all intents and purposes, Jessica Mann, she wanted to be this aspiring actress. She had a roommate. She was getting jobs. She was fine. Mimi Haley, not an aspiring actress, a production assistant, scriptwriter. And then Kaya Sokla was a model and did beauty pageants and won all these, awards and was sent to New York on modeling. All of them were arguably fine. They met Harvey. Harvey could open the door for them. And he was the key to getting them in the room. Harvey, it was a producer. He did not have the ability to say, you get this part, you get that part. But he did say, I can get you in the door. I can get you these scripts. And so he got Kaya Sokolow, I believe it was an extra role on the Nanny Diaries. And this is after he allegedly assaulted her. We're going through this timeline. She got special treatment on that set because of Harvey. Like, because, she felt great.
Well, he
she
told her that. He told her that when he was there.
No.
Right?
She was the only extra that got to hang out with ScarJo and like all these things. Like she felt good. And she says this. And Jessica Mann, after allegedly being assaulted by Harvey and this and that, she would come back. And then and here's something that I thought was interesting. Like when the prosecution said they were at a hotel, and this is after he had assaulted her once, he brings Jessica Mann back up. Her friend is in the other room, right? And Jessica is like, he pushes her on the bed, the state says, and then he goes into the bathroom to use his like ED medication, which is a needle. And he uses he throws it in the trash because she sees it in the trash after. He comes in, he holds her down, he assaults her, right? Well, when the defense got up there, he's like, let me tell you the whole movie, the whole story here. He's like, Jessica Mann is able-bodied. Like she's laying on a bed, but she can get up and walk away. Her friend is outside. He's like, do you guys think like the ED medication takes 1 second to inject and then it's done? No, he left for a good 10 to 15 minutes. Like it wasn't like, so then you're thinking, okay, well then what is the story? I got to hear more because I feel like there is a lot of context here. And the same thing goes with Mimi Haley. Harvey offered her this great trip to Paris. She was not interested in going, but she did go with him 2 weeks later to LA for this and that. Well, then the defense is like, yeah, well, Mimi didn't go to Paris because she's from Finland and her immigration status wouldn't have allowed her back in the country. So this is why she didn't go, but she jumped at the chance to go to LA. So they kind of turned it into this thing where it's like, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. They are embarrassed because Harvey doesn't look like Leo DiCaprio, although he's very charismatic. And then they're like, and by the way, he's not the most powerful guy in the movie industry. I mean, Miramax is great, but there's Warner Brothers. He named a bunch of other studios and this. And so I just thought it was really interesting because I always looked at this from one point of view, from the women's point of view. And that's it. And it was good for me to be in the courtroom. And again, I will be going back for their testimonies and for those crosses because I think it's so important to hear. I want to hear the truth. I want to know because I'm confused. I really am.
Well, and look, I know you're keeping an open mind on this. I do too. I just, these were actually one thing that I was surprised about what eventually came out about Harvey Weinstein was not that it was only this friends with benefits situation and there was a power I would say like a power dynamic gone wrong where you had these weaker stars looking for something. There were actual claims of violent assaults here. Like that's where it goes to the next level.
I'm not talking about
New York. No, I'm just saying. So in general, so the Weinstein story in general was really what surprised me most. And to answer your question about these folks that did, Haley didn't have a career, Mann didn't have a career, and the 16-year-old model who was a minor didn't necessarily have a career. The argument that Gloria Allred will make is their careers blew up on the launching pad because of this situation. So that's the claim while they're entitled to financial benefit. And that's the damage they sustained as a result of this. So you would say, we'll never know whether or not Mann or Haley could have been Gwyneth Paltrow. We just don't know. So that's the claim.
Well, and what I think to that is I think the defense they've got, I don't know if they're going to use them, but I think they might have screen tests and who knows, like they could show that, yeah, maybe I don't know if that would help or hurt. Like, look, she wasn't that good, but he kept his, look, I don't know. Like,
the first person who heard the idea of a sponge that lives at the bottom of the ocean, didn't sound like a great idea, right? A cartoon and his best friend's a squirrel. Probably sounded like a pretty bad idea. It ended up being $1 billion idea. So screen tests of a young star don't necessarily dictate their careers. Right?
No, totally. But I do think, again, I think Harvey will be put on the stand. And that's why they're keeping him at Bellevue right now until the foreseeable future. He looked a lot better coming in than when I saw him for the pretrial hearing, and he came directly from the hellhole of Rikers Island. He actually seemed to have some color in his face. His suit was a bit nicer, and he seemed to be a little bit more upbeat. And it felt strange in the courtroom, Jarrett, because this is such a serious case. There's serious allegations. And when Arthur gave his opening statement, which honestly, it was amazing. It really was. He got laughs from the jurors. He got a laugh from the judge. Like, the judge actually chimed in and was like, made like a joke about, he was making some comparison about a circus and about how he takes his son to the circus and how much his son loves it and he wants to be a part of the circus. And the judge is like, dude, where's this going? And then everyone kind of starts laughing. And he's like, well, I'm trying to tell you, you only see one part of the circus. You don't see the clown smoking in the back and the fact that it smells like piss behind the tent,
Right,
you know?
right,
and like, you're only getting this one side. So it was, oh, hi, Dr. Rachel. So it was weird. And then I'm just going to say this is so bad. But at one point, Arthur said, and he's talking about how, yes, Harvey Weinstein is immoral. He said he should have never cheated on his gorgeous wife. He actually said those words. He should have never cheated on his gorgeous wife. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, right? And so he says that, and he goes, look, guys, I'm not going to deny it. He said Harvey was sticking his tongue in the holiest of holes. That's what he said. I was like drinking water. I kind of spit it out. A guy next to me laughed a little bit because it was just shocking and kind of funny.
But Lauren, he's preparing them. You know, as graphic as that is.
Yeah.
This testimony is very graphic. And you said context is important. When it comes to sexual assault cases, the testimony is graphic. It's visceral. It's brutal. So what Arthur's doing, those moments of levity happen in murder and those things. Like,
yeah.
At the same time, he's preparing them. There's a tactic there. He's acknowledging something. Okay. He's acknowledging that Harvey did something, was unfaithful, was having oral sex. He's admitting that. And at the same time, he's preparing the jury to hear these horrible things about Harvey. And their answer to that, maybe these are horrible things, but their answer may also be, well, we know that. He already admitted it.
Exactly. And
he's not denying everything.
No, when noise came from the defense side, I'm telling you, I felt like a huge piece of shit. Excuse my language, but I did, because everybody from the state side it was a lot of the women. They looked over kind of like, how dare you laugh at that? I was like, I just wasn't expecting it. I just didn't think he would say his tongue in the holiest of holes.
Well, look, I think that you got to realize the folks on that side, many of whom are relatives of victims, and they see it a whole different way. They an entirely
lawyers. They were Alvin Bragg.
Well, they're play acting too. Yeah, believe me, some of the prosecutors I know were crazier than any. Come on.
No, and there was the witnesses, like the complaining witnesses for this trial, they were not there yet. These were just the witnesses that have other civil cases against him. But this is so. I guess it's for me, sitting there was tough, because again, I'm only talking about New York. I'm not talking about LA or California, that conviction, which is under appeal. And he will be able to say that it's under appeal, and they just won't be able to say what that conviction is. But, they also honed in on the fact that Jessica Mann and Harvey actually cared about each other. They had this different type of relationship where, Harvey was is a charismatic guy. And he and Jessica they developed this romantic friendship. And she was the one, after he allegedly assaulted her, she's like, okay, my mom's in town. Come meet my mom. And that is,
Lauren, you're there, you're seeing it. Yeah. It's complicated. I've seen some crazy things post sexual assault in my career. Who knows? But guess what? It's up to the jury. And I think Arthur acknowledging Gloria Allred in the room was great. I think Arthur setting the tone with that statement about the casting couch was great. But I also like the prosecutor's line where she said he defined the field. Harvey Weinstein was this powerful force that defined the field. And that statement, because I'm a big one-liner guy. I like to grab people's attention, and I thought both of those were great. And her name is Shannon Lucy, right? So I just want to make sure
they were trying to get her excluded, actually, from prosecuting this like a week before. Yeah,
we talked about that.
Yeah, because of her interviews with some of the complaining witnesses in the civil cases. But the prosecution also had a one-liner, a couple of them, which was number one, Harvey saying, "I don't take no for an answer." Very powerful, although no context, we can assume if you want to. And then she said something along the lines of when he was about to assault Jessica Mann, or basically he and Jessica Mann had stopped this relationship that they had that was sexual for a while. But this was after all of the alleged assaults, and Jessica Mann was now cutting hair. So she was a hairdresser, and she offered to go to his hotel room and cut his hair, like alone, whatever. So I guess, and whatever, I won't leave it at that. So she says to him, "I have a boyfriend now." And then he allegedly says to her, "You owe me one more time." And then that's when he does the ED needle again. Oh, and this time was so graphic because they said that after this time, they said Jessica Mann will be able to testify. You guys, just cover your ears if you don't want to hear this. Jessica Mann will be able to testify what came out of his penis. And it was very, very distinct, if you will. I'm guessing it was mixed with blood. Sorry, you guys. I'm sorry. I was there.
Well,
you have to hear it too. You have
as
to hear
we said, these cases are very graphic, no doubt. No doubt.
I was traumatized. I actually was traumatized by that whole morning. I was like, I feel like I need
that stuff, like it or not, you're not going to hear that on the recap on certain news shows and anything else. It's just the way it is. That's what they're hearing. That's what they're hearing. And that's what the jury is exposed to. But that's the reality of it. It ain't pretty, So I think both of these cases are compelling. The fact that they're happening at the same time is big. Brian Kohlberger, not to switch gears too much, but we're winding down here. Kohlberger is still facing the death penalty despite his claims of autism. The Judge Hippler, said that autism diagnosis, whether it's legitimate or not, does not meet the standard, the very high standard set by the Supreme Court to not face death if you have a mental incapacity. So that trial is set to begin in August. So we'll be covering that one as well.
Yep, there's lots going on. I did get a note from someone last night about Kansas moms. So I will look. I know there's hearings in May for Kansas moms. So on the 16th, I believe, but I have to double check. So I'm going to go back and make sure I have everything up to date on that case so we can kind of go into some of the new motions. I did not see if a judge, I know Tad wanted the Judge Parsley recused. I haven't seen if there was a motion on that yet, but I've been a little busy. But I promise you, I will look into it by next week for a show. So yeah. So again, I'll be back at Harvey on Tuesday, I believe, and we'll be paying attention to Reed and Kohlberger and everything else. So thanks for being with us, guys. Jarrett, this was so fun. I miss you.
Listen, it's always fun. You know that.
Yeah, it really is. Even, I think, did we skip last week? I don't even remember. Or we just did it later this week?
We did it later this week.
Yeah. Okay. So we didn't skip last week. Okay. All right. Got it. All right, guys. Well, thank you again. We will see all of you next week. We appreciate you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to both channels, Pop Crime TV and Prime Time Crime. Thanks, guys.
Happening, you're trying to figure out ultimately what is
It's still a mystery as to why it took them